All right, nothing in the tash. Yours is looking good as well. Is it tough to be a female PT?
I'm a bigger bodied girl PT, and when I first started, there were a few people that questioned that I was able to be a PT, and that actually worked in my favour to a degree, because people who were bigger bodied and were wanting to feel a bit more confident were able to come in and go, well, you're like me, but you can still exercise and train, and you're strong, and you can do all these things and still be comfortable. I think a lot of women are sort of taught from a younger age being fit is being the tiniest version of themselves, when actually there's just so much more to it. And from working in a gym as well, I think you've got a lot more competition because it is such a male dominated industry, which is one of the reasons why I love the gym that I work at, because we've got 2 female managers and quite a heavy female team now as well. I think a lot of women can find their niche quite quickly. For me, I went into it not really having too much of an idea of what my target audience was at the time. And I think I was open to everything, because I was so fresh into the industry completely that I was sort of just willing to see what found me and who I connected with. But it definitely still felt challenging because there were such strong PTs on the gym floor when I started. I found a natural rhythm with that and the clients that I then picked up. Generally, there are a lot more PTs across the board, and I think it can be harder for people to find their feet. We've got a very strong male PT representation in our gym, so I think that's partly why any male PT that now comes into the club can find it quite challenging, because we've got a lot of bases covered with the guys that we already have. So they've then got to find a different niche, because although it is a competitive industry, we as a team always try and make sure that we're supportive of each other as well. But then, as you say, it's definitely something that we try and do with female PTs, because it can be a lot harder for them in the industry, that we give them more of an opportunity to grow. And I feel like they actually do quite well in our club as well.
I think the mix of people that are in there now, powerlifting, almost bodybuilding style, definitely fitness has come into it. And you've got your own specialism. You're smiling at it already. I know that fitness for you isn't just about what you do in the gym.
No.
And you've tried to, I think, successfully cross that gap. Go on, do you want to speak to that a little bit?
Yeah, so for me, fitness is more about how you feel in your body, not necessarily just how it looks. I think a lot of people have this idea of, I'm going to go to the gym and I'm going to lose loads of weight and get really strong or build loads of muscle. And a lot of the people that I work with, it's more a case of being confident in their body, and there's loads of ways to be able to achieve that. It's just getting a routine and working out to improve your mental health, medical problems you might be having, and just sort of feeling good about it rather than worrying about how you look at the end of it. And that tends to be sort of more my focus as a PT, which then there will come a point naturally with a lot of my clients where I've given them everything that I can. I know there are a lot of guys that I work with at the gym that have a lot more knowledge and a lot more capability than I do, but I provide a slightly different service to them. So that's kind of where I think my niche ended up being, really.
I think that's seen also in the classes that you teach. So what's your crossover there?
One of the things that I absolutely love is dance. And I think it's that creative side of me that gets to express myself in that. And again, that stems from having a bit more confidence, letting yourself go a little bit. The amount of people that will come to my dance class, and it's not overly complex, but some people will struggle with it more than others. And they come out and they're like, well, I couldn't do it, but I enjoyed it. And that for me is great, because I'm very much class focused in my manager role. The classes are something that I'm really passionate about, just because it's a way for people to enjoy exercise when maybe weight training or running might not be for them.
When I think about the gym, I think obviously physical fitness, and you and I both know that if we don't get a session in, if we don't get a workout in, even if it's a suboptimal workout, it benefits the mental health so much.
100%.
What you definitely have with your classes, because they're full, they're waitlist classes, aren't they?
Can be.
It's that sense of community in society. How big do you think that is for people maybe sticking to exercise or getting into exercise?
Oh, I think it's massive. I think not only from a point of enjoying it, but having that accountability. When you see some of the guys that I teach first thing in the morning, and some of them have said to me when we've gone through class changes and whatnot, and they're like, I don't really know what I'm rocking up to, but I come because it's part of my routine. But they all come every single morning, whatever class it is, because it's part of their routine, and they all know each other and they'll chat. And we have the guys that come midday that will have a little bit of a social in between classes. They'll do a mid-morning, they'll go for a coffee, and then they'll come back to your midday class. So I think it is a big thing because they all encourage each other. It's not just us at the front that are trying to motivate and teach you. It's the people that you meet along the way as well. And again, that's why I love dance and classes specifically, because you do become part of a community. And I think that just makes it more enjoyable.
The sound of...
in a step class, whatever.
Helen
Every
step
time
class.
that train goes, I would just be on the gym floor, no matter what client I was with. Like,
I didn't need to know. It was, I think, 20-6. So, oh, Helen's up.
what was fantastic though, the other week I was able to participate in that and I absolutely loved it. I was like, yes, I'm actually in on this now.
I was always on shift. I never got to have a look in. Is it as good as it sounds?
Yeah, it's great fun. It was really good fun.
It's just the energy from it, and people would leave it smiling. And I think that's what classes really do tick off in a way that I like bodybuilding style training. I enjoy doing my bits of cardio, but in part because it's an opportunity to listen to a podcast or listen to an album. So I'm still trying to connect, even if I'm not with other people. Whereas with a class, you're in there. And other people's energy, I think, is massive for your own. And I found that with a run club recently, talking to Jack Martindale in the 4th episode. And he is an incredible runner. I asked him how he keeps it fresh, how he keeps on progressing even when he doesn't have a plan. It's by working out with other people. And he talked about the trips that he went on through making friends and the little runs that he'll do outside of the bigger group because he's found people he connects with. And I imagine it's the same at the gym, that people who have met each other in a class will hang out outside of the gym.
It's a massive thing for me as well, just like that community side of it. And I think, again, with classes, you get to just go in and switch off.
Maybe when you're not feeling up to it, you're feeling demotivated, maybe you're feeling hungry, maybe you've had a terrible day at work. It's nice to know that you could go to a class. It's nice to know that a PT's written your plan out. If you have that one-to-one session, that they could tell you exactly what to do. But some moments you just won't be able to face even that. And I've had a discussion recently, it's a discussion that I have with all my clients who menstruate about different stages in the cycle. And I think obviously it's something I've got to learn from a perspective of somebody who doesn't menstruate. How do you manage sports performance in different stages?
Because it's so individual to the person, the first thing is you've got to track your cycle in whatever way that means, whether it's keeping notes on your phone or tracking it in a calendar, tracking your mood, your energy levels, pain, whatever that might be, because that can affect some people more than others. You know, your first few days, some people feel really sluggish, really tired, having your cravings, and that's when people who menstruate will start to feel like, oh, I'm falling off the wagon kind of thing, because you feel like you've not got control over what your body's telling you. But when it comes to sort of performance in the gym, I think, again, that mental side of it and releasing the endorphins, that even if it is just going for a walk or doing a bit of yoga, doing something a bit more gentle that is still manageable for your body, is a really positive way to handle that. If you're in a strict regime and you're working with a coach, that's something that you should be discussing.
But you have to teach your classes.
Yes.
There's no allowance for that.
No.
So how do you personally manage?
Well, depending on the class. So a lot of my classes are quite involved. So they're not necessarily the type of class that I can demonstrate and then just sort of wander around and take a bit of time out. So for me, it's making sure that I'm hydrated, fueling my body, taking painkillers if needed, just to make sure that I can provide a good class. But a lot of the time now, if I am really struggling, I will just sort of make note at the beginning, just like, bear with me guys, because I think it's good to be open about it. There's no point me giving a half-ass in a class basically and then being like, if it's their first time, they're going, oh, well, I enjoyed it to a degree, but they come away feeling like a little bit deflated maybe, or it's not quite what they expected. Sometimes, again, for me, when I'm teaching, I go into a different zone and I come out of it and I'm like hobbling or like feeling quite rough after it. But whilst I'm there, I think a little bit of like maybe adrenaline, I don't know, something does get to me where it brings me so much joy that it takes my mind off whatever else is happening in my body. So I think I just try to crack on with it as best I can.
The advice we might give to others is a lot softer than what we would tell ourselves. So naturally you have to lead your class and you can be honest and you can say, bear with me. Are there moments when you can tell yourself to get through it in a way that is kind, or is it really just, I've got to white knuckle this and get through it? If you were being honest, what is that experience like?
To be fair, it is just a case of like, get a grip, like you've got to pull through this. There's been a couple of times even, so I get quite lightheaded and my heart rate elevates a lot more so than other points in my cycle. And I'll go down to do like bent over row on RDL and I stand up and the room is just spinning. And I'm like, no, pull it together. You're in a room full of people. You just got to keep going. And I can go and have 5 minutes afterwards and try my best to ease myself into it when I can and take it steady. But there are moments where I'm like, no, you've just got to crack on.
Are there moments when you feel lighter though, when you feel maybe consequent on your cycle that you're able to do more?
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
Obviously, naturally, when sort of in ovulation phase or halfway through your cycle, your energy levels typically are going to be peaking, and this is where a lot of people are going to be sort of hitting their PBs on whatever kind of training they're doing. They're going to have just generally a lot more energy, and that is where I'm just bouncing around the studio for sure. It's sort of a running joke with the guys at work that I'll maybe have a solid week where I'm like, everything's going good throughout the cycle, because it can fluctuate so much throughout the month. But definitely sort of that midpoint when I can notice that my energy's picking up and I'm feeling a lot more positive and in myself as well. I'm not talking as negatively about my body and things because my hormones are at a good point for me in my cycle.
It's not an experience that I've had, but it's one that I'm becoming increasingly aware of. What's ovulation brain?
Well...
It is a thing, isn't it? It might not be called that, but there's a moment that I'm aware of.
Yes. So, well, I don't think I've necessarily heard it called ovulation brain before, but around that point in time, you're... I'm trying to work out how to articulate it. That is your body's natural point that's wanting to reproduce and sort of looking for a mate. So if you're single with a partner, your sex drive is going to be a lot higher. You might give certain people a second glance that you maybe wouldn't have prior, and you're generally a lot more productive with a lot of things, talking more simply. But it's definitely something that I've become increasingly aware of over the last few months when out and about and obviously working in a gym, and you do sort of think, I'm interested in you, and then maybe a few days later and you're like, oh, that was just my hormones.
Amazing. Because you described to me how you and your housemate had the same kind of realisation.
Yes, yeah. We'd managed to sort of, our cycles had somewhat synced, and there was someone that we'd spent some time with that neither of us necessarily very much appreciate an attractive person, not typically attracted to them, and we had a moment where we were both like, oh, wow, well, I feel a bit flustered now. And then the next time I saw them, I'm like, oh no, I'm good.
It's so interesting because it's such a varied and multifaceted, multi-level experience of the world. Whereas for people who don't menstruate, maybe it's just a bit flatter. It's not to say that you don't enjoy things or you don't have spikes, but to have it so pronounced and to notice, at this point in my cycle, I'm going to be productive and I might have more energy and I might think or feel differently about different people. Whereas if you don't menstruate, maybe it's just a case of, all the way through. When we think of how people might get to fitness, how people might even get into PT, you weren't always doing this. No. So how did you end up here?
Oh, well, so I started off working as a seamstress. For me, again, creative outlet. I really loved sewing, making things very practical, hands-on. And then when lockdown hit, there was a lot of stress coming from work and I realised that I just wasn't enjoying it anymore. And obviously throughout lockdown, gyms were closed. We were very limited in what we could do for fitness and exercise. And one of the things that I really missed were classes. So I spoke to a couple of my girlfriends and was like, right, I'm going to put some routines together. And I started doing Zoom classes for them, which was really, really good fun. And I remember a friend of mine saying to me, I really enjoyed that. I'm really good at teaching. That's definitely something you should look into, especially with the fact that I was kind of unsure about my job at the time. And then speaking to family, and they said a similar thing. They were like, well, why not? Why not do it? So I looked into a course and started doing my training online. Again, it was all done over Zoom and whatnot, and having to awkwardly record a in-person client session in my own home, having to do bent over rows with a broomstick. You can imagine it was creative again. Sure. Yeah, so I did my course alongside working a part-time job as a carer, and then applied for Pure Gym, and that was that, and I absolutely wouldn't change a thing.
What does the average person get wrong about the gym?
It's not as scary as you think it is. A lot of people that I bring into the gym that maybe it's their first time, or I'm just giving them a tour.
Yeah.
I can feel the anxiety from them when we're about to go into the weights area, and I do quite often sort of say, are you feeling comfortable? Are you happy to walk around? If at any point, if it's the first session with a client, say if at any point you feel overwhelmed and you want to just step out, cardio is where you feel comfortable, we can go and do that. That's not a problem. But as soon as they get in there, and I think when you've got someone, a PT or a friend who maybe has a bit more of an idea and feels a little more comfortable in that area, they do settle into it quite quickly. So I think initially it's not as intimidating as it might seem. Also, I still get scared sometimes. Stepping into a new gym, a new environment, not knowing where equipment is, it's not just from a point of you've not been to a gym before, as you've literally got no gym experience whatsoever. I've been going to the gym since I was 12, and I still get a little bit anxious sometimes going to a new space. It's normal. But I think once you've got a bit of an idea of what you're doing, what equipment you're using, you will be fine.
Working as a part of the managerial team, what do you know about the gym that you couldn't have known as either a PT or a gym goer?
The amount of work that goes on behind the scenes and how busy sometimes the days are, just the role itself, it's interesting how many plates you have to be spinning sometimes. I really admire my GM, Helen, because I remember when I first started as assistant manager and I was just so overwhelmed. There were so many bits that you have to tick off throughout the week, and not necessarily always mentally taxing as such, but just being able to get that amount of stuff done within the week when you're working on your own, especially if whoever's on holiday and you're having to teach extra classes because your FCs are away, and there's a lot more to running a gym aside from just teaching classes, and that's something that I'm still learning, but I also love that side of the job as well.
Have you found that the way that you think about fitness has changed as a result of being more top level with it?
Not necessarily, no. I think my view to fitness is still very similar to what it was before. I think my priorities maybe changed slightly. As a PT, I'd do my shifts, I'd have my clients, and I'd normally have a gap throughout the day where I could do my own training and sit and do a bit of work. But my priority towards work versus training has changed slightly. That before I'd quite happily spend 2-3 hours doing a training session, take my time and be very strength focused, and now it's a case of if I can get a 40-minute workout in a few times a week, that to me is great, because I'm still getting the benefit of doing a session and mentally feeling good for it as well as physically, but not completely knackering myself out so that I can still function properly the next day, I think. And the growth that I've had from starting to where I am now in management, I was talking about it earlier this week with some of my other managers. Typically, whenever I'm working on my own for the week, doing 2 people's worth of work on your own in the same amount of time, and normally I'd have what I call my Wednesday wobble, where I'd get midweek and I'd be like, there's so much to do. I'd always get it done. There would never be an issue with that. I'd always manage to get things ticked off. But again, from a point of just feeling quite overwhelmed because you've got so many plates to spin. And a few months ago, I had a week on my own, and I got to the end of the week and I was like, I didn't have my Wednesday wobble. Fantastic. So I think just learning to be able to spin all those plates myself, and that definitely feels like the next step of thinking about progression, really.
That's incredible. January is a gym peak.
Yes.
It's a gym peak in terms of stress, anxiety, new sign-ups, busyness in the gym. Around this time of year is an actual trough, from my understanding of being on the gym floor. When are the other peaks and troughs that you're aware of? Do you know what kind of triggers it?
Obviously, every club can be different, but majority of the time we have another peak in September. So because we're city centre, we have a lot of students come back, and again a lot of people will come back from holidays. School holidays are ending and they're like, right, I'm going to get back into my routine. And I think that's it with fitness. It generally is very much a peaks and troughs thing anyway. So people will kind of over the summer, they're like, we're out in a beer garden, we're off on holiday, I'm just going to enjoy myself. And then September comes around, they're out of routine, and it's like, right, we're back into it now, let's get back into routine. So that's definitely a point where we see numbers increasing, classes are busier, the gym floor is a lot busier, and people tend to be able to pick up clients a lot easier as well. And then again, Christmas time is definitely a trough. People are going away to see family, students go home for a bit. People are having time off from work, so they're out of their routine, which is why a lot of people struggle. I think if you're working shifts, you can't have a set routine always because you're doing 4 days on, 4 days off, or you're doing nights and then you're going on to days, and making sure that you are scheduling that in can be quite challenging.
With work patterns that are atypical, if we think shift work, if we think particularly night work, and as you say, the 4 day on, 4 day off cycle that might be common to emergency services, these jobs which are sometimes vital, these people are at greater risk of things like heart attack, stroke, early death, because of the lack of structure and routine.
Yeah.
And as you're talking about, you get to the end of the summer holidays, or you have gone through Christmas, and people wanting to start, people wanting routine. And we know that good mental health typically comes from having routine and structure and something to look forward to, and something that you show up for, that you're accountable for. But we also know that February, March is a big drop off. What could people do differently?
I'm a massive advocate for going to the gym. I think there are lots of ways that it can benefit, and I think it should be something people have in their routine. Yeah. But some people just don't enjoy it. And I think enjoyment is a massive thing for being able to stick with something and create a habit. There are many times where I don't feel up to doing a session, but I stick some music on at home and have a bit of a dance around and make a bit of a fool of myself. And it's still moving my body and it's still being active. And that's not necessarily planning it in, but I've still accommodated time for that.
I think that's important just from a general human perspective. You should be moving.
Yeah.
And government guidelines of 120 to 150 minutes of moderate, vigorous exercise a week, I think is sound. It's not like you need to get 10,000 steps, but you do need to get steps. However you move, you need to do it. And you should be making time for that every single day. Ideally, you'd be getting up to do it. But if 2.5 hours of a week of deliberate movement is what you can do, then that's valid, that counts. So maybe making it smaller. I can't get to the gym today, but I can move for 30 minutes. And that'll be better than nothing.
Absolutely.
It won't turn me into a bodybuilder. It might not necessarily get me abs, but that is the baseline of anybody who is a bodybuilder or who does have abs or who is an elite athlete. They will move an amount every single day, even on rest days. Rest is a relative term from all-out sprinting, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
It's still a form of activity. I wasn't necessarily into the gym before I got into the gym. And I think people in the gym made it easier for me to keep on going to the gym. And I was doing my masters and I came across people who showed me how to lift, who showed up every single day no matter how rubbish their day had been. I wasn't those people, but those people helped me to stick around. So maybe there's something in that. Maybe actually it brings us back to the point of community, that if you struggle to get something done, if you struggle to move in a day, as you say, it is about finding community. And so whether that's a dance class, whether that is your gym membership, which you're still paying for, so you might as well go through the door. Or maybe it's a case of five-a-side or joining a run club. Or
if you're the type of person that's been to the gym and then you fall out of love with it and you try and force yourself to go back and then you fall out of love with it, and maybe you're going back and doing all the same things, and maybe that's why you're not sticking to it, because you're not enjoying it. Try something different. Whether that is you've done classes every time you've been and it still isn't bringing you that joy, try a taster session with a PT or look for a lifting class that they might do, because you might find that actually that's where your heart lies, and vice versa. If you're doing lifting and you're not enjoying it anymore, try something different. Branch out. Go swimming, go to Pilates. It can be any of that. I think community is such a big thing that I feel will help someone stick to a routine, enjoyment, and being surrounded by other people who also enjoy it and encourage you and build you up.
are there links, places that you'd want to send people to who are interested either in what you do or the kind of things that you're encouraging people to do?
I think from a point of home workouts, Fit On was something that I used a lot throughout lockdown because I've got such a range on there of 5-10 minute workouts. But definitely Ink Dance has just got my heart for sure. And if you're interested in dance and that's something that you want to explore, I was nervous going back to it for the first time, especially to a heels class. I almost walked out of the first one because I felt like it was imposter syndrome. It was like I didn't feel like I belonged there, and I forced myself to stay and absolutely loved it. And every single time I want to go back whenever I can make the time. So that's definitely one that I shout about.
Perfect. We'll drop the link in the description and hopefully get some people into dancing.
Yeah, amazing.
Cheers, bro.
Thanks, Jack.
Huh.
What is that?
Can I have a little sip and then I'm not going to touch this again.